He got called out for micromanaging, so he swung all the way to the other extreme. Today's guest shares how he learned that neither extreme actually works and what it took to find the middle ground. Stay tuned for another great episode of Bad Boss Confessional. Hi, I'm Beth Fahey, and this is Bad Boss Confessional, where real leaders get honest about the mistakes that made them better. Before we dive in, a quick thank you to our sponsors for making this show possible.
Do you love running on EOS? Try Stretty, the EOS platform people love. Native integrations and extra features help you manage people, projects, process, and engagement. Connected to your favorite EOS tools and all in one place. You love EOS. It's time to love the platform you're running it on. Try Stretty free at stretty.com. That's STRETY.com. Stretty, the EOS platform people love. Let's be honest, hiring the right people is hard. That's why I love Titus Talent Strategies. Their whole person hiring approach helps you find and keep A players who align with your values, and they back it with an industry-leading guarantee. Best part? Titus Talent Strategies is included in the entrepreneurial toolkit for companies running on EOS. Check them out at titustalent.com/EOS.
Today's guest is Troy Schuette, an expert EOS implementer coach, and EOS community leader. After spending 23 years building, growing, and selling his own company, Troy discovered EOS and has since facilitated more than 800 full-day sessions, helping leadership teams gain clarity, accountability, and traction, while also coaching fellow implementers to sharpen their own impact. Welcome to Bad Boss Confessional, Troy.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Beth. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you can't wait to get to the confession, right?
Yeah. It's so fun humiliating yourself. It's great.
Yeah. And that's usually how people feel when they come on the podcast. But I've known you for a while, and I know that you have no problem with vulnerability and sharing stories. So thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks again for having me.
So I wanted to ask you a few questions about your background, what you were doing at the time of your confession, just so that we can ground our audience in what was going on for you at the time. So would you mind giving us a little bit of color on what was happening at that time?
Well, as you mentioned, the business spanned over 23 years. So started when I was 21 and left college. Knew I wanted to do something and be an entrepreneur, and the opportunity presented itself, and I went for it. With very, very little management experience of managing people. I was just going to figure it out along the way. I mean, it should be easy, right? Like, it's not hard managing people. Haha. And so, yeah, the confessional spanned probably over the period of 10 of those years, where I started out, and we'll get deeper into it, but very high level, started out. I thought I had to micromanage it. Well, I didn't even know what micromanaging was, probably. I hovered over everybody. Did you get this done? Did you get this done? Did you get this done? Checking in, making sure they did it, and drove people crazy. That's pretty much what I did. And then that spanned all the way to the other extreme, where I thought, well, I'll just let people do their job and they'll figure it out along the way. That doesn't work, just to let them do whatever they want to do. So that's the very broad brush of my confessional. I can get deeper into it as we go through.
Yeah. So tell me about your business. What were you doing? What was your business?
Yeah. So we were in waste management. So we did residential collection, commercial collection, roll-off dumpsters, single stream recycling. When we sold, we had about 50 employees, plenty of issues with just 50 employees in and of itself. But yeah, built it from the ground up, and
Wow.
we went through all the entrepreneurial emotion that you go through from in the beginning, the fear of not making payroll. Um, we grew at a clip of 25% per year out of sheer
Hmm.
will. And then we
Hmm.
sold in late 2016. And I tell people that story, and it makes it seem like I had this fairy tale going on. Like it's
Hmm.
just real easy. Like you just start the business, you run it, you build it, and then you sell it, right? Simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was not the case. We made it out of sheer grit.
Hmm.
And eventually, for me, I got tired and worn out. And then, as I've told you before, I found EOS after I sold. Actually,
Hmm.
had 3 copies of the book sitting on a bookshelf in my office, but I cleaned it out. Never read it. So yeah, so there's another confessional. Yeah, what I do now, I had the perfect opportunity to read before I sold the business,
Yeah.
but that's okay. I get to do what I love now every day.
Yeah.
So it's great.
Well, you were too busy for EOS, right?
Right, right. I got this to do. I got payroll to make, you know. I don't have time to study it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had multiple people, some of my learning through the years, peer groups that I was in. Like I would tell them what was going on in the business, talking about stuff that I did as a manager or as a boss, and
Hmm.
they'd be like, "Have you read the book Traction yet?" And I'm like, no, no, yeah, I know somebody mentioned that. And like it addresses everything you're talking about. I'm like, yeah, okay. And then I'd get in my car and I'd throw it over my shoulder and be like, all right, I got
Hmm.
stuff to do, you know.
That's right. That's right.
But you had more time after I sold. There's more time on my
Yeah.
hands at that point. But so that's it in a nutshell what we did.
Well, let's go back to this micromanaging thing because I, looking back, probably did a lot of the same things. And it's so funny how you talked about over indexing on your correction, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I mean, so you're just like, well, I just won't do it at all. I mean, I'll
Yeah.
just let you guys figure it out. So,
It's so true.
where do you think that comes from? Because we see it all the time, right? We see it with our clients. We remember when we did it ourselves. Where do you think micromanaging comes from?
Well, I'll just say where it comes from for me. It's fear. Um,
Mm.
as the entrepreneur and as the owner, everything is on the line. At least it was for me. And I think
Hmm.
that's the way a lot of entrepreneurs feel. So everything's on the
Hmm.
line. You don't want to
Yep.
let anybody fail. You don't want to make sure that everything works perfectly, because as we all know,
Hmm.
a lot of entrepreneurs are perfectionists. So, um, self-proclaimed right here. I've learned to deal with
Yeah.
it. So I think it comes from that point of fear that you don't want anybody to fail. And what
Yeah.
I've learned over the years is the best thing you can do for somebody who reports to you is allow them to fail.
Mm.
So a great lesson I learned after all this micromanaging and hovering over people, and like found out this out after the fact, but I would have new people onboarded and people would be scared of me. Like I think I have a
Mm.
pretty friendly face, right? Like I'm not that intimidating. And people would be scared of me. And then I found out why they were scared, because they're like, you aren't allowed to make a mistake here. Like that's the perception I gave. It's not what I thought in my head, but that was the perception that he he doesn't tolerate mistakes. So
Mm.
you got everybody fearing you, and
Hmm.
in my head I'm going, that's not what I'm trying to portray. Like I'm not trying to portray
Hmm.
that, but that's what's coming off. And so you come from the point of fear, you don't want them to fail. And what I learned over the years is that, again, if you allow them to fail, that's where all the learning comes from. It's where I learned
Hmm.
from. Why didn't I do that for them? Right. I mean, I
Hmm.
had plenty of things that I messed up along the way. Well, that was some
Hmm.
of the best learning I ever got. And if I
Hmm.
would have let them do the same thing over the years, my attitude always was, this was not in the beginning, but once I figured this out, I always told my leadership team, I said, listen, a decision is better than no decision at all. And I have not given you enough latitude in this business to make a decision that unilaterally can take this company down. So make a decision. And when I started taking that approach with people, they were so much more relaxed, and I think actually
Hmm.
made better decisions, because they're
Hmm.
like, now he comes at it from a point of, okay, what did we learn? Like, what can we
Hmm.
learn from this mistake, or what can we learn from this opportunity versus this fear of, gosh, if I make a mistake, I'm going to get fired, which
Yeah.
was so not the truth, but it doesn't matter what I thought. It's how the perception I was giving, or their
Yeah.
perception of me.
Yeah. Perfectionism is another thing that
Yeah.
you touched on, which is related to
Yeah.
micromanagement for sure. It's
100%.
you're that way so that everything is perfect. And that also, I think, comes from fear.
Hmm.
Um, and honestly, I think it also comes from a place of empathy, right? I
Oh, tell
mean,
me more.
weirdly.
Yeah.
So I've had situations where clients are protecting their people to a degree. Like
Mhm.
they just really want to make sure that they're not overburdening their people. And, so their idea of sitting with them and let's just work through this together and I'll hold your hand while we do this project together.
Yeah.
And what they don't realize that they're doing, because they think they're being super helpful, but they're creating this codependency
Yep.
also that then is dysfunctional because then that person always has to plug into that supervisor or leader in order to do what's expected of them,
Yeah.
right?
So true. So true. And then I would too. Oh gosh, there might be more confessionals here, but I would also
There
like,
usually are.
I would usually, uh, I would view one of my leadership team members as being overwhelmed, right? Like, I don't want to overwhelm them.
Yeah,
From a point of empathy,
right.
it's like, well, they're already completely overwhelmed. So I'll just do this project, or I'll just do this, because if I dump it
Yeah.
on them, they're just going to be that much more overwhelmed, when I wasn't doing them a favor by doing that, because they weren't given the opportunity to grow then. Um,
Exactly.
so, but yeah, I see what you're saying. Point of empathy.
Yeah, there was one team in particular that they kept explaining things away. Well, this ERP system is just it's so hard, and we're really overwhelming people and so we're just going to sit with them and help them do all this stuff. So, yeah, it's there's always some reason for it. So, you're a coach for EOS, and I find that this is a really interesting perspective. So, thank you for sharing your confession about what happened at work. I think everybody, can learn from that. And it sounds like you were able to figure it out. You were able to start to let things go and, you started asking for decisions to be made, which then gave them freedom.
Too much sometimes.
Oh, really? So say more about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the other side, you touched on it, but the other side of the spectrum is
Hmm.
because, and I didn't land in the middle. It went from one end to the other end until I got to the middle that I just explained, where I had
Hmm.
balance. So because I was accused of being a micromanager, which I was, I guess an accusation was true, but because I was accused of being a micromanager, then as an entrepreneur, and probably like a lot of visionaries and myself included, we live in extremes. So
Hmm.
the extreme was micromanaging. Well, now I'm going to go
Hmm.
to so okay, well, I'm a micromanager. Now we'll go to the other extreme. And the
Yeah.
other extreme is this: hold my hands
Yeah.
up, being like, well, you told me not to get involved. And you go to
Hmm.
this other end of the spectrum.
Right.
And I have one story of somebody that I promoted up to being a GM, which would be integrator in our space. Promoted him up to being the GM, and truly believed that she could do it. Special emphasis
Hmm.
on the word believe. And so I was tired, worn out. And so I
Hmm.
just turned it over and said, you got it, you run with it, to the point that I was having people come to me in my office, and they wouldn't go to this particular person who was the new GM, because they're like, well, Troy, you're right there. I'm like, well, she can't learn if you don't bring the issues to her. And so I had to keep derailing it. And so I got an idea from my coach, and he said, why don't you work from your home office for 3 months and don't go in,
Hmm.
except for what was called our staff meeting, which would be level tens and EOS language. And I'm like, wow, that's scary. So I did. I unplugged for 3 months.
Uh-huh.
Not a good decision, by the way, with no training, with no clear
Hmm.
expectations, with no training or the tools or the
Yeah.
resources or anything that she needed except, you got this. You can do it. Like, I was the best
Yeah.
cheerleader ever.
Yeah.
So a year in, she called me right before Christmas and she said, Troy, I don't know what we got to do, but this is the first day of my resignation and I'm not going to desert you. I'm not, but I can't do this job. It's too much. It's affecting me,
Wow.
my family, all of this. And I get chills when I tell that because I'm like, I did that to her. She didn't do it to
Mm,
herself. I didn't give her any of the
mm,
tools or the resources or the training to do the job. And so there's the other end of the spectrum where you get people, you can micromanage or you can be at the complete other end, and neither of them work.
right.
Uh, and so then I land in the middle. It took me
Hmm.
quite a while to get there, but then I land in the middle where now you can let people fail. But I gave them the proper expectations. We were aligned
Hmm.
on expectations. We were aligned on the training. I didn't just say, go get them. Like, that doesn't work, right? And
Right.
so that's kind of the whole broad brush of the confessional, is that I went from one extreme to the other extreme to finally land in the middle. And I still am a work in progress. Like, I don't manage that many people anymore. Um, but in a way, we kind of do as EOS implementers, right? Not necessarily manage, but definitely coach. And that's what being a
Hmm.
boss is. You have to be a great coach as well. And so I think I'm a better coach now as an EOS implementer because I went through those experiences. I think that makes me better today.
Yeah. And age, right?
Yeah, that definitely helps. Yes. Yep.
Because when you were saying like you started this business in your early 20s and you just kind of figured it out through grit and, white knuckling it and,
Yep.
like a lot of entrepreneurs do, and there's no training manual for how to be about, well, there is now, but there's not a book that somebody hands you at the beginning of your business ownership and says, here, here's the
So you do it.
pitfalls that
Right.
you need to avoid, and here's how you do it. And now I think, especially, there's just so much more content out in the last 20 years around leadership and management. For sure, there's tons of TikToks and like, I mean, you could just drown in all of the content that's out there. And then even that I think becomes overwhelming because people are just like, I'm not learning enough. There's not enough hours in the day. And so when you're coaching your teams and you kind of see that wash over, because we see it all the time, there's usually a point about a year in, right, to the EOS process when they start to realize, oh, this LMA thing is pretty important, you know? So, how do you coach your teams when they are experiencing that for the first time? What do you point them to? How do you help them through that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I did a deep dive on this recently and thinking about, and the deep dive presentation was around how we use LMA as a diagnostic tool
Mhm.
for issues. So, not saying, oh, that person's in the wrong seat, as an example.
Mhm.
Like, every time I have a team bring up that they have a people issue, well, I think it's the person. I'm like, great, let's back up for a second. Let's look in the mirror.
Yeah.
So if you sat down with this person and said, hey, am I following all the leadership practices that we teach in EOS, the 5 leadership practices? And are you following the management practices? And physically asking that person, hey, Beth, am I giving you clear expectations? Have you
Mhm.
given me expectations that you have of me as your boss? And am I meeting them? Um, have I given you the proper training to do the job? Am I surrounding you with people that are the right people in the right seats? Are you having to pick up their slack? I think I always have them look in the mirror first and say, are you
Mhm.
doing your part to make sure you're
Mhm.
setting them up for success before we
Yeah.
ever start talking about the person and saying whether or not their core values fit, or GWC, to use the US terms, obviously. So I think that's kind of how I use the tool as a filter um, for solving issues, really.
Yeah.
Using the VTO for decision making. I mean, you know this already, but if we get aligned on the VTO, day-to-day
Mhm.
decisions are a lot easier to make
Yeah.
because we use that as the filter. It's the same thing here with
Mhm.
the leadership and management practices. At least that's how I use it.
Yeah, and I think that's great because I again I would support that you have to get the person to look in the mirror. A thing that I hear a lot of times, and I gosh knows I was guilty of this myself, was surprise firing people.
Oh yeah, right.
You know, and I mean, oof, that should never ever happen. Like no one should be surprised that they're being let go or moved somewhere else in the company, because those conversations just need to be super clear and not couched with a bunch of softening so that that person doesn't really realize what you're actually trying to tell them. And I think that just that having those tough conversations, that skill is something so many of us just never learned.
No, you have to, and you have to physically do it, right? It's like role playing. Like you have to do it and you have to go through. I shared with you, I mean, I got a list of confessionals here if you want more. So I've done plenty of things wrong. But one thing that I think I did right, and you touched on it in the last 10 years of my business, was I tell my clients, I'm like, I had never fired anybody in my last 10 years. And they're like, really? Like you never fired anybody? And I said, well, no, people got fired, but I never had to do it because I got good at clear expectations, the proper training, all of the things that come along with that, the right resources. And I had those conversations with them. And I used to approach it from a different way. I said, there's 4 reasons people don't do their job. First reason, they're not clear on what you expect of them. Second reason, you didn't give them the training to do the job. Third reason, you didn't give them the resources, people around them. Fourth reason is they just don't care. I can only fix the top 3. If they don't care, I can't do anything about it. And so I think um, anytime people left the company, every single time, because I gave those things and I gave them a chance to improve and whatnot, they would come in the conference room and I'd say, do you know why you're here? And they're like, yeah, I'm fired. Like I never had to say the words. Um, and I made plenty of mistakes along the way before I ever got to that realization. But I think if, as leaders and managers, if we can make expectations so clear, allow people the opportunity to fix it, like you have to give them an opportunity to fix the problem. But if they can't and it's hurting the organization, in my case, I owed it to the other 49 people in the organization and their families to make those tough decisions and allow them, as I would say, be successful somewhere else. So,
And I think people have just this, I don't know, this concept of being a manager or a leader in an organization where they think it's okay, well, I just have to give them their marching orders and I just need to do all the thinking for everybody and give them the marching orders. And they just need to do that. But I think what it really is, and this dawned on me, I don't know, probably my late 40s, was what we are there to do is when we're doing it really well, we're growing people. We're growing them into who they were meant to be. We're allowing them to be in their flow state. Like when we're really getting, we're working with them and it's kind of like this, I don't know, jujitsu kind of
yeah,
thing that's happening, right?
yeah,
And it's really cool when you get into that groove with somebody and you're helping them get to the next place. That's like, I'm like getting goosebumps talking about it for the
yeah,
like handful of times that that's happened. But then on the flip side of that, if we have a situation where it's like all the earmarks are there, you've got red flags galore on that this is not working, this is not working. We owe it to them, and this sounds kind of harsh, but I think to make it an inhospitable environment
mm,
for that kind of behavior. Like they were on Mars and it's minus 200 degrees, right?
Yeah.
It really needs to be uncomfortable for somebody that is, you know, not a right person for reasons outside of our leadership and management.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. Yeah. I always say, in EOS, we say right person, right seat, but the right person in the wrong seat, like that person, from my experience, will never come and tell you because they
Right.
fit the core values. They love you, you love them, but we owe it to them as the leaders and managers. I always say to let them off the hook. And I have real life experience with this. Every time I let somebody off the hook, didn't have another seat for them, and I just said, "Hey, how do you think this is working?" Immediately tears, and it's not working well. Great, let's talk about where you can go, and let's talk about a
Hmm.
transition plan that allows you to be successful somewhere. Nobody likes
Hmm.
going to work and at the end of the day feeling like they did a poor job every day. At least 99% of the people I've met. They don't
Right.
feel good about themselves. And I think you kind of touched on it there, is that, you know, that hospitable environment, but two, just calling it out when you just know it's not going to work. And it
Hmm.
doesn't have to be this ugly thing, this bad thing. Just, hey, I'm here for you. We both share the same core values. We both love each other, but let's find some place where you can be happy every day. Because going
Yeah.
through life and hating your job every day is not very fun.
Yeah. You know, our buddy Renee Boer
Yeah. Yes.
had this saying, and I've probably mentioned this on the podcast before, but it's worth mentioning again. When you keep somebody in a seat for your own convenience, because that's usually what it is. Like, well,
100%.
I can't let them go right now. You know, we've got this thing going on, the CRP system or whatever it is. There's always a reason why we can't let them go right now.
Yep.
But when you keep them in a seat for your convenience, not theirs, you're stealing their life,
So true. It's so true. And it
right?
sounds extreme, but it's real.
Yeah. And when you think of it in that context, it's like no one would ever knowingly take days away from somebody
Right.
in their life.
100%.
But you're kind of doing that when you
Yeah.
keep somebody that really isn't performing in the way that you need them to. So,
Yeah. It's so true. And they,
yeah.
they're going home every night feeling that way. And then
Hmm.
thinking about, and I had somebody say this to me once. They're like, you aren't only affecting them, Troy. You're affecting every
Yes,
person they go home to, because
that's right.
as much as they try and hide it, it's really hard, really
Yeah.
hard to hide that. So when you start looking at it from that perspective, I mean, there's a lot of weight being a leader and a
Hmm.
manager, but that's what you're signed up for. So you got to do the
Yeah.
tough things.
Yeah. It's a responsibility, not a reward.
Yeah, right. So true. Yeah, that
It's like
is
parenting
right, right, right. Uh,
in so many ways, right? So uh, you screw up the first few.
right. Last kid usually turns out pretty well,
They're
Yeah.
so chill. I don't know why.
Right. Oh, that's funny.
Well, this has been a lovely conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your confession today. Um, there's so much that we learn along the way, and I just really appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing that story. This is one that there are many, many people that can identify with that. So,
Well, I hope it helps just one. That
yeah,
would be great if it helped one.
yeah.
That'd be wonderful.
So the goal is like don't overcorrect, right?
Right.
Just go right to the middle ground. Like
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Let's not go to
don't drop it like a
extremes.
hot
Yeah. No. Well, they told me I was micromanaging, so fine. I'm not going to do anything then. Yeah. That's not the right way to do things. No. No, I was pretty young, so maybe that had something to do with it too.
yeah.
But
Yeah, read How to Be a Great Boss,
right.
review
Right.
the leadership and management practices, and just stay there
Yes.
forever
Yes.
and
So
like
true.
never leave.
Oh, so true.
One last question for you, Troy. So I ask all of my guests this question, and it doesn't have to be related to your story necessarily, but I always ask my guests just to learn a little bit more about them. If you were to get a tattoo somewhere on your body, I don't know if you have tattoos, what would your tattoo be and where would it be located?
I think it'd be on my forearm on the inside,
Uh-huh.
so I could look at it. And I think it would be a road that goes into a never-ending sunset. And underneath it, it would say 1%. Because every day, all I'm trying to do, I'm never going to arrive. I'm never going to reach the
Mhm.
sunset. And I have to remind myself of that because I used to chase it. I used to chase the sunset. Now I spend a lot more time enjoying the journey. And the 1% is just to be 1% better every day. Like, I just want to be 1% better, like just
Yeah.
improve somehow every day. You can get into a trap of not enjoying your successes and actually looking
Mhm.
back. Dan Sullivan talks about focus on
Yeah.
what you have accomplished versus what you haven't. And entrepreneurs, we are not wired that way. It doesn't.
Yeah.
So it is a rewiring, but you become a lot more happy when, Gino talks about you can be driven and have peace.
Mhm.
That's what I'm always searching for. I can't stop the being driven, but I can
Right.
control the peace. And so I
Right.
think just reminding myself that just 1% better, that's enough. And then it's a never ending journey.
Yeah. And enjoy the sunset.
Yes. And enjoy the sunset. Don't forget to enjoy the sunset and
Go.
enjoy the ride along the way. And I don't have any tattoos. So, you know,
Well, there's your inspiration.
there you
I
go.
don't either.
Yeah.
So
But if it was going to be one, I'm like, that's probably what I would do.
I like it. I like it. It'd be a good t-shirt too.
There you go. There you go.
See, we can't stop ourselves.
See,
Like,
we're
have
always
you thought
creating.
about selling your t-shirt? Maybe a sticker.
Right.
Oh my God,
Right.
can't stop us. All right, Troy. Thanks so much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you soon.
Yes. Thank you very much for having me again.
Thanks to Troy for reminding us that great leadership isn't about hovering or disappearing. It's about finding the balance in between. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, subscribe, and share with a friend who needs to hear this. Thanks for listening to Bad Boss Confessional. We'll see you next week.